Okay, so 5 key elements for Pilates for the APPI method. So number 1 is breathing. Breathing's one of the things that is used in Pilates. It's not the most, I wouldn't say it's the most vital thing, especially when you're just getting used to it. I usually say to people, if you're struggling with the breathing pattern, focus on the movement first, then incorporate the breathing. But it is vital to have an awareness of your own breathing pattern, knowing how to breathe in Pilates as you get a bit more into things. Everyone has their own breathing pattern. Some people may find they're using some of the muscles sort of higher up into their neck and sort of their scapula, their upper traps. Others will find that they're breathing much more deeply. In Pilates, what we're wanting to do is fill the lungs right up. So we do want to get lower down into the rib cage. To get an awareness of your own breath pattern, just try having a lie down, just thin head lock, have a wee lie down, your knees bent like so. So this is actually the Pilates rest position. Just have a little feel of where you're breathing. So just taking a few breaths. What you want to feel is your rib cage. Ideally, you want to feel that expanding out and in. Okay, just taking a few deep breaths. If you're struggling with that, one tip that I got taught, I have my band ready. If you have an elastic band, I know mine broke, so I've kind of improvised. Have something elastic wrapped around you, and then what you should feel as you're taking a deep breath in, you should feel that elastic expanding and a little bit of resistance to it. It's a nice way just to give you a little cue, just to get the air right down to the bottom of your lungs. Okay, so that's number 1. Next one, number 2, centering. This is quite often one of the trickier ones to get the master of, because it does take a little bit of explanation, a little bit of a mind muscle connection, as I like to call it, and it's not something that we do consciously daily. What centering is the engagement of the deep core muscles. In Pilates, it's part of what they call the primary sling. So the muscles in particular that we are looking to work are your transverse abdominis, which we tend to call the corset muscle. So it's basically a muscle that comes right round from your spine, coming round to the front here. It is not part of your six-pack muscle, your rectus abdominis. It is, like I say, a corset muscle. It works quite hard, especially when we're doing sort of stability movements. The other one that we want to engage is the pelvic floor. Quite often for women, if we have given birth or are due to give birth, we get warned about pelvic floor exercises and things. That's essentially what we're wanting to engage. It is the muscle that literally sits kind of at the bottom of our pelvis. We want to get that activated. Again, it's not something we do sort of consciously day to day, so it sometimes takes a bit of time to master. Okay, I quite often like to teach this lying down. Again, similar, have a head cushion or your folded up towel, nice and thin. I'm going to get you in the Pilates rest position again. So what I usually get people to do, start off lying on your back, start off with your feet and knees together, walk your toes out, walk your heels out, walk your toes out just so you're in line. That will put your legs about hip width apart. Okay, we don't want the knees to sort of fall in and out. Try and keep them nice and lined. Okay, first thing we'll do, and this is where sort of the APPI Pilates is slightly different. In traditional and sort of Pilates class that I've been to before, I was getting told imprint, push your back into the floor. APPI doesn't actually do this. What they focus on is what they call pelvic neutral. And again, I tend to find it easier doing this lying down on your back. What finding your pelvic neutral is, if you pop your hands either on the side of your hips, some people like to make a little kind of diamond shape, pop that just kind of on the sort of front, sort of in between their hip bones. What you're doing, rock your pelvis back the way, okay? So as if you're tipping it that way. If you've got your diamond, as your way to spill, if you think of it as a bowl of water, you're spilling it forward onto your tummy. That's rolling your pelvis back the way. And then try rocking it forward. So this will create a bit more space in your lower back. So if you've got that diamond, you're pulling water forward as if it's going in between your legs. Okay, try doing that a few times. So you will feel underneath your lower back you're kind of getting a bit more space when we tilt forward. When we tilt back, I'm squashing my hand, okay? What you want to find all the way forward, all the way back, somewhere roughly in the middle, okay? That is what we call your pelvic neutral. Why APPI does their exercises in pelvic neutral rather than fully imprinted is just because we're not fully imprinted all day, every day with all the activities we do. We're more likely to be in a more neutral position. So that's why we find our pelvic neutral. That's kind of the first bit of the centering that I want to talk to you about. The next bit, and this is the tricky bit, activating of those deep core muscles. The best way that I find to do this, and one of the things I get people to do, find your bony prominences on your hips, okay? You'll feel they are really prominent. Just kind of go underneath your belly button a couple of inches, out to the sides, you'll feel them, okay? What you want to do from there, come in an inch and down an inch, okay? And in that position, you will be roughly over where your transverse abdominis actually meets your obliques, okay? What you want to think about doing is squeezing the muscle underneath your fingers there. If you're struggling with that, prompts that I usually give people is imagine you're trying to draw your tummy in. We're not trying to suck it in like that, okay? We're trying to enclose our tummy in. So if we have a corset on, if you're a female, or if you've got a belt around you and you're wanting to tighten it in another notch, or you're trying to squeeze into a tight pair of jeans, we're drawing our tummy in. And it's a nice gentle movement. What we don't want is full on tensing. As you can see, I'm struggling to actually breathe there. Okay, I want a nice gentle squeeze. I can talk normally while I'm keeping that squeeze on. I should be able to move about a little bit while keeping that squeeze on. That is you engaging your deep core muscles. I'll also show you the points in kneeling. Okay, so bony prominences of your hips, inch in, inch down. You're squeezing those muscles just kind of underneath there. There we go, we've got them now. Okay, like I say, takes a bit of practice. But what I would do is just try practicing that even on its own. Even if it's just squeezing and let go, you don't have to hold it. Try doing that maybe 10 times. Try doing it a few times a day initially, just till you get used to it. Like I say, it took me a while to get into it. It is quite tricky. Okay. So that's the basics of centering, okay? Number 3, or key element number 3, ribcage placement. This one's a bit easier to explain and shouldn't take so long. In Pilates, obviously we are centering, we are engaging those core muscles. So that's keeping our pelvis stable. We also want to use our core muscles to keep our ribcage stable, okay? So what we don't want to happen is we don't want our rib cage flaring up the way. So that's me keeping my pelvis stable, but my rib cage is flaring up the way. So it's getting lifted up. So my core muscles aren't working so hard. So for example, if I was lifting my arms overhead and I just let my rib cage do what it wants to do, it'll arch up. What I want to do to engage my core muscles, I want to keep this still. I usually get people to imagine hip bones and your rib cage, there's a little cord between them and we're keeping the tension on that cord. So as I lift my arms up, I'm keeping that tension on. I'm just going to where I feel I can control that and coming back down. Okay, so I'm keeping my rib cage down and it's just developing an awareness of using those core muscles to keep that rib cage down. Number 3 done. 4th one is scapular placement or shoulder blade placement. So Pilates does use a lot of your scapular muscles, which are vital. It's vital that they're nice and strong to prevent kind of shoulder injuries. So with this key element, what we're basically aiming to do is just get you having a bit of an awareness of your scapular movement. A nice, easy way to do this. Again, in your Pilates rest position, thinking about the key elements number 4, engaging the core, getting our rib cage nice and flat down, not flaring out. Having your arms up above your head. I say to people, imagine you're holding a big beach ball, okay? Or you could say a giant rugby ball, I have seen them before. All you're doing, reaching that beach ball up without moving your elbows at all. Your elbows are straight, so you won't be able to do this movement. retracting it down. So it just gives you that feeling of your shoulder blades kind of moving around your rib cage, okay? So you should feel different muscles activating when we reach the ball up, and then when we bring it back down, keeping the arms straight, you'll feel other muscles working, okay? So it's just having awareness of those muscles there. During a lot of our exercise, what we are encouraging is the shoulder blades to be pulled back round, so they've slid back round the rib cage. It's quite often what that's doing is it's engaging mainly kind of like our lower trapezius muscles, and also our mid trapezius as well. A lot of them are muscles that we aren't using a lot throughout the day. So again, it's just working on those nice postural muscles. The last key element is head position, or head placement. So in our Pilates movement, we don't want to be looking straight up at the ceiling. We don't want to be slouched over. We want to ensure, I move my hair, we've got some nice length throughout the back of our neck. One of the prompts that we quite often give people is thinking about having an orange in between your chin and your chest, and you want to keep that there. So I'm not looking up, I'm not looking down and squashing it, I'm just holding it in place with our chin. So you're imagining you've got a helium balloon on your head, just giving you that nice length in your neck. It's preventing this kind of slouched over posture that we are quite often in throughout the day. And that principle applies whether we're sitting in our Pilates, whether we're standing, or whether we're lying down as well. I don't want to be up like this. I want to just make sure I've got my orange in between my chin and my chest whilst I'm lying down as well, and keeping that there. So for example, if I'm doing any movements which require me to lift up, I'm not doing this with my neck, I'm engaging the core muscles and keeping that orange, as we say, in between my chin and my chest. Okay. And that is our 5 key principles. I was just looking at the time there, it has taken quite a while. So those are the 5 kind of basics. Like I say, particularly the centering, it takes a bit of time. Don't get frustrated if you don't get it initially. It will suddenly crack. You'll suddenly be like, oh, I didn't realise I could actually move that muscle. I remember doing this in uni for the first time, and I think I was just squeezing my big glutes muscles. So, I mean, that was years ago, but it's taken a bit of time for me just to kind of perfect it. Give it a go, lots of practice. Even if you're just doing it throughout the day, you can do it. Like I say, I generally teach it lying down. You can then do it sitting. In particular, with finding your pelvic neutral, you can sit and work on just moving that pelvis. You can also do it in all fours. So again, that's just me moving my pelvis. It's not me doing a full sort of cat-cow like you would do in yoga. It is just moving the pelvis, okay? Like I say, give it a go. And what we'll do for this session is we'll move on to, I'll just go through some of my sort of top exercises that I like to give people who quite often are desk-based work and they're getting a lot of kind of upper back, also lower back pain. Okay.